Hey y'all, welcome back to the Gymnazo podcast. I'm your solo host today, Michael Hughes, and excited to kind of dive into a state of the industry podcast with you. This one's going to be short, brief, but hopefully powerful in the sense of unpacking where we believe the boutique industry is, essentially where movement trainers, movement practitioners, professionals, coaches do their business. We most of us, at least in our experience, don't necessarily work in the big box gyms. We all kind of started there in a sense, and we've moved into this boutique fitness realm. And you could kind of put the CrossFits, you can put the Pilates, you can put the bars, you can put Orange Theories, F45s, and all the other kind of solopreneur type of trainers in that field. We don't work next to the machines or to the racks of dumbbells or these long lists of aisles of treadmills. Not saying that we don't work there, but most of us, I think, are in this kind of boutique phase of our industry. So I wanted to kind of touch on that and share what I've learned from the Health and Fitness Association Conference, or formerly known as IRSA, which is essentially the biggest gathering of fitness professionals in a large scale in the world. And when we have a large scale, it's the movers and shakers of the industry. It's those who have traditionally defined fitness. And I have to kind of preference that because, what I hope you get value out of this podcast is essentially is an understanding, at least from our perspective and what I've learned from that conference and that trade show, is where's the industry going to move forward? How can you best align yourself with the information, the grassroots kind of back end, next to the water tank kind of talk, and also where we feel the industry is going in the boutique space. So you can align yourself with, okay, what do I do with that information? How do I leverage that to make the best decision I can for the career of my field? And I'll talk about that, as that was a big, big topic coming into it. So IRSA attracts the biggest players, and essentially what I mean by that is the LA Fitnesses, the Crunches, those people who have hundreds of locations that are more health club based. Now, again, that's traditionally what IRSA has been about. So the trade show is full with the Lifetime Fitness, with the Kaisers, which is relatively small in comparison to these other players. But these large equipment bolt down camshaft, seats and leather and, very planar movement patterns that we traditionally see in gyms. Again, who makes the ellipticals? Who makes the rowers? Who makes the bikes? Who makes the lat pull-down pulley machine? Who makes et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? They're all there. And they're showing up some pretty cool engineering. To be quite frank with you, it's impressive to see multiple football fields or soccer pitches, in a sense, sized room full of fitness equipment. And there's nutrition there, there's software there, there's tech there, there's locker room stuff, there's flooring, there's all kinds of stuff. But it's anything and everything that would outfit a health club and boutique. Now, what I mean by boutique, again, is me referencing those, again, smaller locations, 3 to 10,000 square feet that service more the personal training realm. So it's also there too, because there's a lot of cool racks and storage type stuffs and medicine balls and all that kind of good stuff. So let me kind of jump into it, and I went to several different talks. One was how to be a trainer as a career, and then one was essentially, movement is medicine. Another one was the state of the boutique industry. Another was the state of the fitness industry in general. And I'm going to try to speak on all of those kind of collectively. I'll do my best to kind of share which one I'm referencing to. And then I want to share a lot about what was kind of the back end talk, what was spoken about in between sessions, which essentially, is where I got the most value. And I really hope where you get the most value too is it's the networking, it's the conversations that you have, and that speaking of like, gosh, that speaker said this, but what I really got away with, what I got out of it was this. And again, I'm speaking towards the movement professional, the movement coach, the personal trainer who wants to make this job, most of us a hobby job, a career, a business, something that we can hang our hat on every single night when we go to bed and say, you know what, I'm making a difference and I can continue to do it. So let me just start with this statistic, which is fairly accurate, for at least from those who have collected it. I have to trust them. Now I want you to picture a group of trainers. So let's just picture 100 of them, right? 100 personal trainers. They all start and say, I'm going to be a personal trainer in whatever that means, right? In the broad sense of what that means. In 10 years from that point where you see those 100 trainers, only 5 are remaining in the field. If you do the math on that, that's 5%. Now, I don't know about you, but in terms of an industry where you can find success and someone says, hey, you want to do that job? Well, in 10 years' time, if there's 10 of you in the room, 0.5 of you, a half of a person, will be actually still doing that job. Would you say, gosh, let me run into that field? Sign me up for that one. I am going to be that 0.5 person. I'm going to be essentially 5 of that 100. Would you say that's a job that we should pursue and say, gosh, good odds there? And the answer is no way. I sip some coffee. No way. I mean, there are fields where, we talk about medical doctors. We even talk about, I'm getting into professional sports. The percentages are kind of in that zone. And here we all are. Here we all are doing it. So that was a really kind of profound piece. Now, I've been in this industry for 20 years. Still doing it. So apparently I'm in that 5%. And if you haven't reached 10 years yet in the industry, and you really want to, then I hope this podcast gives you some value. Now, I started off in this conference with this sense of like, I'm going to go hear what other trainers are having to say who are on stages in this conference, who have been given the honor to be on this stage to say, how do I be a personal trainer for life, in a sense, a career? And unfortunately, what I got out of this first talk was sadness. Sorry to bust in a bubble, but they talked about essentially how to be a trainer in a big box gym, and they eventually led the talk to saying, if you want to be a career trainer, you better move to management. And I was like, wait a minute. You're just saying the way to be a trainer is not to be a trainer. If you want to have a career in training, don't have a career in training, have a career in management, writing for blogs, media content creation, and helping other trainers build up to a level that hopefully they make it to where you're at too. You kind of hear what I'm saying here? It's like, I want to be a pilot. Good for you. Then you're going to build a career to where you won't fly. It's like, that just doesn't make sense. But yet that's what was being preached to the 75 people in this room who all came to hear how do they make their job as a trainer be more of a career. And that really, it made me sad. It really did. I'm putting in my life's work to have people have the career that myself, and again, I have to be honest with you, I'm not training as much as I am, but the team that operates in our facility has, which is a career trainer. What's a career trainer mean? It's a sustainable workflow that they can actually work the amount of hours that any other person would work, an 8-hour workday. That they get paid a wage that is supportive of the market that they live in. And that they have the support to enable that to not burn out and still have growth. And those are kind of the 3 defining factors. And then there's really a 4th, and it's the background education. And to us, you have to have that to have those other 3. Not necessarily, but hopefully you get the point, right? That's the cornerstone of it all, is that you have to offer more than what the personal training industry offers. And what this talk was talking about was essentially just the ho-hum. It was do the standard quo, and hopefully that makes you into a managerial spot. So I left that first session with this sense of like, man, I hope this is not what the rest of the conference is, but it would make sense. So I felt a little disheartened, but then I stepped into another talk that was really about movement as medicine. And this flipped the script for me. It was a positive way. Basically, it was this physical therapist who's really understood that we can really tackle chronic disease, a lot of chronic disease, with simple exercise as the prescription, and how this needs to be really the keystone talk of the entire conference. And obviously that wasn't. It was from a owner of a big box gym who has done tremendous work. I'm not going to try to second guess that one, building a franchise of gyms all across the world. But he said it so plainly. He says, I don't really run gyms anymore. I run real estate. And I was like, okay, that matches. That matches with the industry. You're not a trainer of people anymore. You're a manager of people who train people. And I want to talk about this real quick, and I'll get back to movement as medicine, but a little tangent here. Most health club businesses operate under this, and I'm going to be bold here, and I apologize, but I want to be bold, saying most big box gyms, if not all big box gyms, operate with a business model that if their clients actually show up, they won't be able to operate. Now, what I mean by that is they oversell the number of people that can fit inside of their gym, hoping that they don't show up because they don't have a big enough building to actually manage the day-to-day flow or the even bi-weekly or even tri-weekly flow of their membership into that building. Essentially, the fire marshal would shut them down for overpopulating of that building. But that's what they do. They oversell and hope people don't show up. Now, again, they wouldn't say they hope people don't show up, but if you really look at the numbers, they overbuild it. And the boutique space is kind of the opposite space. We do our very best, again, I'm speaking generally, to say, no, we want everyone to show up, and hopefully that we just sell out. And we sell out, and then we open up another location. I guess that's what our focus is. But so in this space, so this particular person speaking in, this therapist speaking about movement is medicine. It's like, yes, this is awesome. And we can really make a big dent if only we knew more about how the human body worked and how essentially we could tackle and dive into this space that essentially more muscle is a big solve for a lot of problems in the chronic disease state. It doesn't solve everything, of course, but if we actually put a focus on preventable care or put a focus on simple strength training, we could therefore edge or hedge so much of how the human body reacted from a physiological and chemical state. And that should be the prime focus. Let's get people to move more. Again, hey, hands up. I was like, brother, that's it. You got it, brother. You got it. But then when I asked him outside of the talk, how do you think we should do that? Like, show me what you mean. And he's like, yeah, essentially, I'm not trying to oversimplify, but it's like, yeah, put them on machines. Put them on machines. And I'm like, okay, so we're building the musculature, which I get, but we're not building the ability to move. And obviously this is the hill that we're going to die on, right? And this is what Gymnazo is all about, is saying, building muscle for the sake of muscle's sake, building muscle for the sake of physique is not a bad thing. But isn't there so much more applicable resources that we have with this human body in terms of movement and the vitality, aka the meaning, the enjoyment of this machine, relatively speaking, that we live in and that we function in? And shouldn't we go a bit further to provide even more value and even more capacity to our athletes and to our clients than simply saying, let's get your quads a little bit bigger because those are big muscles and they can really kind of put a lot of effort into the body's health? And again, a good starting point, but that's where the industry already is. And yet we do not have sustainable careers in this industry as a movement practitioner, as a trainer. So we have to go bigger than that. And that leads me to kind of the next talk that I really kind of spoke about. This awesome owner of a still big box gym, but seemingly doing it in a different way. Saying really, we have to really pour into our coaches to give them that personal development. There's that word that keeps kind of popping up in my world. Very, very recently, it's been something I've always known, but the only way that we're going to grow is if we grow ourselves more. And as a trainer speaking to hopefully a bunch of trainers here, it isn't more clients. It's more understanding of ourselves. It's more knowledge ourselves. It's more investment in ourselves. And that's where I believe as an industry, we underperform. We give until there's nothing left to give. We burn out, and then we either turn it into a hobby job, or we never leave the hobby job. We never actually make it a career, and then we go somewhere else. Still working with people, still enjoying our interaction with people because we're people, but we go somewhere else, and we become that 95% of the trainers who didn't make it to 10 years. Or if we did make it to 10 years, it's not a job still. And so it's kind of that deeper dive where he was saying, we have to understand like every trainer needs a goal. They need a personal business plan. And he really dove into a very motivational speech about, setting ourselves up, that what do you want? What are your goals? What are your timelines? What are your passions? What do you want to do? And how do you encourage and growth towards that? So I really like how this big box gym owner was really taking it personally and saying, my coaches are only as successful as their careers are. And so I was like, okay, cool. That's a good start. They're really focusing on the business side of things. But then again, I want to kind of point, it's like, let's take it another step further. Let's focus on the educational, the science of it all, right? So I kind of look at like the trainer has three major chunks. There's the science of movement. There's the art of coaching, which is essentially what our MDMC mentorship focuses on. But then there's the next piece. There's the business side of things. And business is all-encompassing from sales to marketing to personal development to finance. I mean, everything that kind of comes into that play. And it's another big chunk. So if we can really understand all three, which again, what every other successful career does as well, then we can really start to kind of dive into where we can actually make a long-lasting play in this industry and to really celebrate goals, to really push into this, like I'm making jumps and I'm accomplishing what I've set out to do. And at least for me, when I first started training, I didn't really set those goals until someone kind of encouraged me to set those goals, to say, hey, Michael, like how much do you want to make per day? I was like, I don't know. I'm just trying to get new clients. I know, but break it down. And I remember the conversation I had with a friend of mine in college named Caesar. He said, Michael, my first goal is to make $150 per day. And I guess this is in 2004, so just give it a little perspective. It's 20 years ago. And $150 a day was essentially what he would get paid after his commission, right? So even though he charged $80 a session, the gym only paid him essentially $20. Okay, so 20 and then divide that by 150. That's how many clients he needed to do for that particular day, just to make easy math. And I thought that was such a cool goal. Again, this is for someone who was just in college. And that was my first step into this, like, wait a minute. It isn't just about the passion of the human body to help people. I need to set a plan for myself. And a plan is only attainable by one word: action. Action. Plans are great. Manifesting is great. Prayer is great. Planning is great. But it has to be followed up too. That's just my philosophy. Action. Now again, the word action has a lot of meanings to it. Boy, there's a lot of meanings to it. And we typically go overkill and we grind, right? We grind at it. And I think where this kind of sense of work and this effort gets lost is that we grind so much that essentially we don't really have a plan. So we kind of have one without the other. And I'm really kind of saying, let's go after both. Because you can work extremely hard and be successful without a plan. I mean, it's possible. I think that's really where we have a lot of trainers making it 10 years. They just put so much effort into it. But they could be so much more effective and efficient if they had a plan with that effort, where they can actually balance their work life, in a sense, to be enjoying that process, where they're working hard, but they're working hard to a point. It's like a magnifying glass, right? The sun is super powerful, but if you magnify it, I mean, I did it all the time as a kid. You can light leaves on fire. And that's what I'm talking about. Have a plan and then work that plan versus just work as hard as you can, pointing in all directions, or having a plan and not necessarily putting enough effort in to make it happen. So both. So I was really appreciative of what he had about that one. And then kind of flipping through this, kind of diving into it more, and this is kind of the meat of really what I wanted to talk about, is starting to kind of understand, okay, so we got the business, we got the motivation, we understand that we can solve a lot of the sick care's problems by simply having exercise as a daily routine. And I'm going to steal from a few different people, but also kind of share with what I've always spoken about too, is like, if exercise and our clients' personal development was so focused on exercise. Again, this is something we didn't have to worry about a few, 100 years ago. It just was inherent in how we had to do things. But as we continue to move into the AI age or the automation age, human body needs to do less and less and less. Well, the human body still needs more and more and more in terms of efficient movement and health. So we have to make it as part of our daily routine, like flossing, like brushing our teeth. It needs to be that common and frequent for us to do these things. Daily intentional movement is what we're prescribing, is what we're recommending, what we're advocating for. Now, we all move. It's impossible not to. But is it focused on a goal? Is it focused on an intentional outcome? And that's what we like to coach on, and that's what we do, at least as an example of in the boutique world, relatively speaking. Not saying that the big box don't do it as well, but it's their intention is, I think, more broad and less value given. So stepping into this kind of state of the industry, especially the boutique world, this was really fascinating, and I wrote down a bunch of information here. I got my notebook in front of me because I thought it was awesome. And the speaker was really, I really admired what she's done, and I just want to continue to realize that there's always mentors out there, whether you pay them or not, whether they know that you're their mentee. It's just always to continue to find those who you want to stand on the shoulders of, and those who are willing to allow you to stand on their shoulders, whether it's intentional or not. I think that's what this industry is really building on, and I'm just so happy about this grassroots piece, and that's how I'll end the podcast, is kind of what's the building wave. So in 2022, the health, fitness, nutrition, etc. industry, right? Essentially everything that a personal trainer kind of touches or can touch, was a $48 billion industry. Now, we're just talking about health and fitness here, right? We're not talking about medical. The way that it's growing, it's estimated in 2029 is going to be $80 billion. Now, that's almost 100% growth, right? Almost. So 40 doubling, right? So it's almost 100% growth, and that's in the near, 4 to 5 years. Okay, so the next 4 to 5 years, if you're just starting out training right now, the need for your job will increase. However, the challenge of you making it that long still will persist. The number one problem in the boutique space is actually growing a team. And I thought about that. Dang it, that's the one thing that we're trying to push as much as possible on. That to being a solopreneur in this industry is hard. Extremely hard, and I don't even think we should do it. And I use the metaphor or the analogy of like trying to run your own restaurant, and it's only you. You're the host, you're the server, you're the waiter, you're the cook, you're the cleaner, you're the dish, washer, whatever the case is. It's just good luck. I'm not saying it can't happen, but how long are you going to be able to do that? It's like we're running restaurants here. We have a service and we have a product. The environment is critical, but not necessarily, the only thing. And how are you going to leverage to serve more people, enough people, to reach the profitability and the lifestyle that you can do it? So that's why I really like to reference the restaurant industry. How do you do it? You have a team. Now, can you do it by yourself? Yes, you can. I'm not saying you can't, but is it going to be the net outcome that most, I'm talking 99% of people in the market they're in, can do that? And I think the answer is no. You need a team. So growing a team is the number one problem. It's 88% female in the boutique space, and the average age is 37. It's pretty old. I'll be quite frank with you. 37 is pretty much 40, right? So we're talking about We're talking about young Gen Xers and old millennials. Young Gen Xers, old millennials. Now, why don't I think it's even older than that? Because I don't know of anybody who's retired with a great pension, right? Or a great retirement account on as a head household income saying, yep, I've been a trainer and I've supported my life, my family growth, my investments so I can retire and live the rest of my life doing the passions I want versus the work I want. I don't know anybody who's done that. Not saying that there hasn't been, but I know a lot of lawyers have done that. A lot of trainers have done that. A lot of restaurant owners have done that. A lot of other plumbers have done that. A lot of electricians who've done that. We're all in the service industry, right? Essentially, we don't make the pipes. We don't make the wire. We don't cook. We don't necessarily grow the food, right? We just process it. And that's kind of what trainers do, right? Our product is our workout, but our service is our coaching. So, with all that information, the F45s, the daily methods, right? These large corporate, franchise units are downscaling. They're downscaling. Interesting. Actually, even one of them was delisted from the public stock exchange, from the New York Stock Exchange. That's not a good business growth, trend. So interesting. Wait a minute. It's going to go to 80 billion in 29, but these larger programs are scaling down. What's up with that? What's scaling up is other type of restorative-based franchises, the longevity labs as one of them. Is that we're really, that there's an emphasis on restoration growing. And this is where I get super excited about, because that's essentially what I believe trainers need to blend into. They need to blend fitness with restoration. In fact, that's Gymnazo's tagline. That's what we do. Okay, but define restoration. I'm not talking about a sauna and a cold plunge. That's not the restoration I'm talking about. I'm not saying that's not restorative, but that's not value giving. That's not movement giving. I'm not saying it's not movement giving, but it's not the movement that I'm talking about. Right? Those are, I don't want to use the word fads. Those are very effective tools. They are effective tools, but movement is still king and queen. So diving into this piece is like, what's the next generation that's coming into it? Well, it's the millennial generation, but who is ready to be served now? And that's the baby boomers. As they talk about, the new audience for boutique fitness is the baby boomers. What I was so stoked about that's not the new audience for Gymnazo. That has been the only audience for Gymnazo. Now, I'm not boasting here. I'm just saying that we realized that early on, and we put a focus on that audience. Why would we put a focus on that audience? Because that audience cares the most. They really do. They have gotten to a point in their life where they realize their body is the one, or if not the most important asset of their entire lives. And they want to continue to stay vibrant and active. And the only ways that they can do that is by practicing vibrancy. And how do you do that? Well, you don't sit on a bench and do overhead presses. That's not going to get you far enough. You need to express functional, multidirectional, dynamic, spiral, diagonal movement patterns. Again, the ways you move outside of the way that you're going to play with your kid, the way that you're going to do the chuck it with your dog, the way you're going to go hike that hill, the way you're going to move down and be on the ground and do some gardening, right? There's things that bring vibrancy to life is not isolation physique-based training. It's just not. It's not good enough. It's good, trust me, but it's not good enough. It's not going to build a career on, because that's what the market has already built in as the status quo. So you have to go more than that. You got to dive deeper into that process. And so that was a kind of this really cool understanding of like, oh, okay, there's a new wave. There's a new client out there who's just so wanting a trainer to be capable so they can trust them and they can provide for the rest of their life program. So I really want to emphasize that is this speaker who was diving into this, she's like, guys, this is kind of like the elephant in the room talk. All these big box gyms, they realize they need to bring boutique services into their space to survive. Because boutique space in that 24 billion, if I know 48 billion, 40% of that is boutiques. That's crazy to me. I didn't think it was that big. 40% and growing is the boutique space. When I first started, boutique didn't even exist. Like CrossFit was just getting cool. So half of my career is still left. That's how I look at it, right? I still have at least half to go. I'm 20 years in. I got at least 20 more where I'm going to be full throttle. I'm happy for that. Okay, let's go to work. Not saying that I want to kill the big box gym. That's nothing to do with it. But I want to provide a product and a service. I want to understand that elephant in the room is that there's a whole evolving industry in our own industry that is still not being truly acknowledged. But the numbers, the data is essentially saying it's unrefutable. But yet it's still underneath. So it makes me really excited, and I want to kind of end with this. It makes me really excited for the trainers out there, for the movement practitioners out there who really want to put more value into the marketplace and provide our clients with a greater sense of what they're training for is literally applicable to their daily life. That all the trends, all the data, all the total addressable market is what we say in the finance world in a sense, or what the finance world says, is massive. But they don't know that you exist. And they don't even necessarily know that that's what you can give them. But they know what they don't know. I'll say that again. They now know our client, our ideal client for the boutique, for the movement coach, now is aware of what they don't have. And they need someone, they want someone to guide them to get them there. So we must know enough about the human body, know enough how to coach, have the business model to sustain and be a vessel for that growth, and start having the confidence and the true capacity, the true capability to train those who have movement dysfunction upon movement dysfunction, but want to get on that pickleball court, want to keep playing golf, want to keep hiking, want to keep gardening, want to be active and vibrant and have enough energy to be with their kids and their grandkids. And guess what generation is just behind them? And guess what generation is just behind them who is even more aware of the need for sustainability? That's us. At least that's me, millennials. We are the most relatively aware generation about the need for longevity. So it's set for us. We have the next 20 years, if not maybe longer than that, dialed in for us. But they need to know that your product exists. So be confident, step into it. Find a mentor that can get you there fast enough. Because the wave's building. The wave's building. And I want you to ride it. I want you to catch it. And I want you to propel you into a career that is so fulfilling. And here's the word. I've heard this from so many people recently. Impact. I want to provide impact. Money is a driver, but it's not the biggest driver. In fact, it's not even the top 3. It's impact. It's fun. It's sustainable. I want those things. I want to provide that to the world. And I believe, again, coming from the URSA convention, though it was not on the main stage, but it was on the small stages. It was in between the halls. It was the meetings at the bars at the nighttime, kind of gatherings. It was the networking that was going on in the corners. That's what I experienced. And it was so uplifting to me to come out of there saying, you know what? The industry's here. We're all here, but we haven't gathered enough around. We're kind of hoping that someone stands up and makes something happen. That's you. That's you. So again, we want to be a mentor to those of you who want to stand up and start making a new product, having a new profession come to light in this industry. We believe that we're doing it. Can we do it better? 100%. But we all need to start to kind of provide friction against each other as we grow and develop. There's this awesome, and I'll end with this story. This awesome story that I heard Steve Jobs just tell. This is much younger, or much earlier in his career. He talked about living next to this man, and he was invited. And long story short, he's invited into this man's kind of garage, and he says, "Let me just go grab 2 basic rocks, plain old rocks." And he put them in this homemade rock tumbler. And he says, "Come back tomorrow." And Steve Jobs was, again, in his story, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but he came back and the next day and those rocks were just beautiful and polished. And he's like, well, how those basic rocks, boring dirt covered rocks, turn into this? And it's the friction, right? The water, the grit inside of it. It's us in the industry pushing against each other, even having arguments at times, but pushing an idea forward, because ideas are cheap. But the results of those ideas, you have to work them through. You have to fight through them. You have to say, what else can we create in this marketplace that people almost don't know that they need, but they know that there's something out there. They know that there's something that is missing, and they're waiting for us to invent it. They're waiting for us to say, here it is. Try it on. Let's see how it goes for you. And I believe that's what the industry is. I believe that there's essentially, as we call it, the kinesiologist is being born in the industry. Now, I have my degree in kinesiology, but that doesn't necessarily make me a kinesiologist, right? It's really unfortunate that we have an entire degree out there that doesn't even have a job. So we're rebirthing the functional kinesiologist who's mixing restorative therapeutic training with fitness, with function, with lifestyle, with behavioral aspects, and becoming the true movement coach that this industry desperately needs to potentially save itself. I'll end it with that. That was my takeaways from IRSA, or the Health and Fitness Association 2024. The industry trends that I see what's happening. Obviously, I'm biased about movement. I want to be, very, very open about that. But I can see the writing on the wall. I see the wave forming. And I know that a lot of you want to jump on that. And if you do, you have an ally. You have a friend, you have a fan, someone who wants to root for you. So let's be rocks frictioning together to grow and to expand our capacity so we can give more capacity out to the market. Thanks for listening. Appreciate your time. And I look forward to doing many more podcasts just like this. Cheers.